Sing and they will come. Jai. Oops, yeah, this is going to cut my finger. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Nahamane Nama Om. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Dishatarine Namaste. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Jayo Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Prabhu Nityananda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Oh Lord, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada. Jai Jai Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada. Let's all say Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Srila Prabhupada Ki. Hare Krishna, everyone. I think everybody's still recovering from lunch. What is it? Fiesta, then siesta? What to do? I don't like to start without Maharaj here, but we're going to be running into the Sunday feast if we don't start. Ah, Jai. Speaking of the angel. Jai Maharaj, you're just in time. Okay. Lesson 10, Your Srila Prabhupada. Before we look at some ways to access and nourish our personal relationship with our founder Acharya, let's consider how Srila Prabhupada is for everyone. So I chose this image to start the lesson. because I find that image and that gesture particularly endearing. So I've asked this before, but can you tell me of an image of Prabhupada that you like that's particularly endearing in expression and gesture? Do you have something in mind you can describe?
Srila Prabhupada handing over some cookies to children.
Yeah, those are great, wonderful shots. We're going to see in this lesson how Srila Prabhupada is so all-sided in his wonderfulness, and that's certainly one of them, the way he related to the children. Yeah. The cookie handoffs. And we were right there too. We wanted a cookie too. Anyone else? No? Too many, huh? Yeah, it depends on my mood. So now we will look at how Srila Prabhupada is for everyone. Universal teacher. There's Prabhupada in the early days of ISKCON. In simple dress, Prabhupada is smiling. I believe it's New York. I didn't know. I thought it was the West Coast, and then I saw another photo that had this similar background. And it was a New York photo. So, in his 1935 public Vyasa Puja homage for Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, delivered at the Bombay Gaudiya Mutt, Srila Prabhupada declared. So Prabhupada, he delivered a speech at his Guru Maharaj's Vyasa Puja, the keynote speech of the evening, and he wrote that poem. And here's how Prabhupada opened the speech. Ladies and gentlemen, the Acharya Dev, to whom we have assembled tonight to offer our humble homage, is not the guru of a sectarian institution or one out of many differing exponents of the truth. On the contrary, he is the Jagat Guru, the guru of all of us. The only difference is that some obey him wholeheartedly, while others do not obey him directly. So that's a Jagat Guru. Now, 36 years later, 1971, speaking as the founder Acharya of ISKCON, Srila Prabhupada echoed that homage of decades earlier when a reporter asked him a question. So where's the mic? Okay, want to start, Mara?
Universal teacher. In June 1971, when Srila Prabhupada attended the San Francisco Rath Yatra, a reporter asked him how many disciples he had. Unlimited, Prabhupada said. Some admit and some don't admit. Admit you are a servant of Lord Krishna and your life will be a success.
Pretty bold, huh? You got to be pure to say something like that. Otherwise you sound like an egomaniac, huh? Fully surrendered to and empowered by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and the previous Acharyas, our Prabhupada was able to present Krishna consciousness with universal appeal. So, universal teacher, and the next way Prabhupada's for everyone is global preacher. Want to pass off? Mataji, you want to read? Okay, there is Srila Prabhupada deplaning in Geneva in May 1974. They don't have exits like this anymore, do they? It was explained to me it's not as secure as the other exits are against terrorists for some reason. Well, there's Satsvarup Maharaj, there's Srila Prabhupada, there's Guru Gauranga Prabhu, who was a pioneer in Switzerland, and to this day is involved. And there is a devotee who I believe worked for the TV station, and she provided Yadabar Prabhu with rare footage of Prabhupada. So, global preacher, okay, here we go.
Global preacher. In 12 years, Srila Prabhupada circled the globe 14 times and established the Krishna consciousness movement on every major continent.
I say major continent because he didn't go, as far as I know, to the poles. Although recently some devotees did go to the South Pole in the summer, and they, which was December our time, and they planted the ISKCON, some kind of ISKCON flag, and they had kirtan, and they distributed prasadam. They left some books for the scientists down there in the Antarctic wilderness. Now, there's more. I think there's more to this. Yeah.
He also initiated thousands of followers and continues to inspire countless more to surrender to Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Prabhupada was able to connect with people on a very deep level just by his presence. He really spoke on the level of pure spirit, cutting across all kinds of karmic lines of ethnicity, race, nationality, politics. It was quite extraordinary. So, global preacher. Now, Prabhupada once answered a devotee who wrote him a letter inviting him to the San Francisco Ratha Yatra in 1974, and Prabhupada replied, quote, regarding your invitation that I attend the Ratha Yatra festival in San Francisco on July 7th, it is possible that I may attend, depending on when I finish my European tour. And it was this very tour. I am due to arrive in Rome on May 23rd, then after a week, Geneva, then Paris, and possibly Stockholm, then Germany and England. If there is time, I can fly directly from Europe to Los Angeles and go to the festival. Now, the festival is up in San Fran, and that's another little short hop on a plane. Then, as you suggest, go to Australia Ratha Yatra via Hawaii. This is known as Jet Age Paribrajak Acharya. Now, believe it or not, Prabhupada didn't coin that. In the Hindustan Times, one reporter noticed Prabhupada's itinerary, and he said in his column, this is a jet age Swami. This is not an ordinary person who didn't even know what jet lag was, you know. Or if he did, he didn't let on. Now, even if you're doing something amazing like that, you're always going to have critics. You ever seen the t-shirt? It says, avoid criticism, do nothing. Of course, if you do nothing, you'll be criticized too, right? One critic of Prabhupada's opined that if Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted Krishna consciousness in the Western countries, why didn't he go there himself? Some critical Swami said this. I think he was a Mayavadi, actually. To which Prabhupada shot back, quote, so he left the credit for me. He loves his devotee more than himself. Crazy questions, perfect answers, right? Okay, global universal teacher, global preacher, matchless giver. Want to pass? Okay, there's Prabhupada writing at his low desk. How many letters did Prabhupada write? Do you know? I mean, that we know of, there's over 6,000. It's probably closer to 7. Here we go, Mataji.
Matchless giver. Srila Prabhupada founded over 100 Hare Krishna temples, schools, farms, and restaurants, all while writing and publishing dozens of translations and commentaries on foundational Vaishnava scriptures.
That is superhuman. Traveling around the world non-stop and writing books. Now, Maharaj has wrote a book. He wrote 2 books. 3? 2. 4? Anyway, you've written books. Now, when you go to write your books, what do? Yes, you have to sit down in one place. Writing is a very intense meditation. Can you imagine exploding a worldwide spiritual movement, and then while you're doing that, you're dictating books? That's not ordinary. And so because he was doing that, he was always begging us, mainly the GBC, to relieve him of management, but we could never do that because we were so neophyte and needy. Prabhupada would say, every word, when I'm translating, every word has to be document. But if I'm disturbed by management, if I have to be thinking what's going on in Bombay or Nairobi or Caracas, I can't do it. But he did it anyway, which is totally amazing. So, yeah, look at all this. But by the time Prabhupada left this world, he had established 108, believe it or not, temples, farms, restaurants, schools, affiliates like the Bhaktivedanta Institute. Simply astounding. So, while pioneering Krishna consciousness on many fronts over 12 years, how did Srila Prabhupada find the time to write so many books?
When we were sleeping, Prabhupada was writing.
Yes.
He would take rest, 10:30 in the evening, wake up around 12, not really sleep, but just rest. And from 12 o'clock for the next few hours, he would absorb himself in meditating on the Bhaktivedanta purports, which went on for, it's hard to say, 3 hours sometimes, and then after that he would chant his japa. After that he would go for a morning walk. After that he'd wind up at the temple, take Guru Puja, give class, and then go back for breakfast, take breakfast, then get another little rest.
It was a non-stop. This is like superhuman. He would average maybe total, if you add up all the naps, napping after, at night, and then napping after breakfast and napping after lunch, it was about 4 hours, 4.5. Completely amazing. The only time he could translate when we were asleep, because we were always needy. We had so many problems, right? So, another short sleeper is the cow, to whom Srila Prabhupada would sometimes compare himself. In his memories of Srila Prabhupada, Guru Das reports that once in Bombay, he told Srila Prabhupada he was concerned not enough people would show up for an engagement the devotees had arranged. Prabhupada replied, "No, I'm like a cow. I give milk anywhere. This is what I like to do." And then there was once a temple that it called up the temple where Prabhupada was and said, "Will Srila Prabhupada take prasadam before he leaves, or will he take prasadam when he gets here?" And so the person asked Prabhupada, and Prabhupada said, "I can take prasadam in this pasture or that pasture. I'm like a cow. I can take..." And he's turning the grass into milk, into the nectarian, the nectar of Krishna consciousness. Okay, now how else is Prabhupada for everyone? Where's Prabhupada there? You recognize the throne? Los Angeles. Yeah, that beautiful crimson and gold. You can't quite see it there, but it's like a gold throne and crimson material seat. Usually you see the shot where Prabhupada's looking right at you head on with a gong, but here he looks like he's looking up at Krishna. It's quite amazing. Srila Prabhupada playing the gong at ISKCON Los Angeles in ecstatic love of God. Okay, let's, where's the mic? Okay, Mataji? Want to read that? Can you say it?
Shaktyavesh Avatar.
Shaktyavesh Avatar.
Unless one is empowered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, one cannot spread the holy names of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra throughout the world. Persons who do so are empowered. Therefore, they are sometimes called Avesha avatars, or empowered incarnations, for they are endowed with the power of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
So there's Prabhupada in his purport describing the symptoms of a Shaktivesh avatar. So I find this excerpt particularly endearing. What do you think I'm getting at? Yeah, he's describing objectively the symptoms of a Shaktivesh avatar, but he fits the description. But unlike other gurus, swamis, and yogis, he's not saying, that's me, I'm it, I'm the incarnation, I'm the avatar, worship me. He's just directing people to Krishna and his incarnations. That again is our founder Acharya. He never directed people to himself. And that's why it's our job to make Prabhupada's glories known all over the three worlds, because he didn't do that. He was utterly, absolutely transparent. But we want to bring everyone to the merciful path that he opened wide back to Godhead. Okay, so if Srila Prabhupada is for everyone, he is certainly for everyone in his own ISKCON Sangha, as we will now hear. Okay, there's the image that spoke to me. When I saw that image, I thought, wow, this is a bona fide spiritual master. I want to be his disciple. You know how this came to be taken, this image, this picture? It was very early. You have the mic? Where's the mic? Oh. Famous shot.
I think Prabhupada asked to have a professional portrait, and I think it was arranged by Haj Agriva.
Well, you're getting warm.
Yeah, I mean, there were two pictures, the picture of him standing up and this picture.
Yeah, with the purple background?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, what happened was Prabhupada left 26th Avenue in January 67 to open up the second center in 518 Frederick Street. And so when he left New York, the New York devotees were like totally bereft. And so they wrote Prabhupada and said, we don't know what to do, we're lost, you know. And so Prabhupada said, well, look, just follow my instructions, hold class, take prasadam, study my teachings. Of course, there were no books then. I wonder what... people were taking notes. There was transcriptions of his words. And then he said, and put my picture on my seat. We don't have a picture. So then Prabhupada enlisted, I don't know if he was initiated yet, but it was Roger Siegel, became Guru Das. And he was handy with the camera. So Prabhupada just offhandedly, it wasn't really professional, he just offhandedly asked Roger to arrange something so that we could have a shot. So Guru Das, he knew how to do it. So he just made a little background. He went in Prabhupada's room and he made some kind of different, like he had that big one with the purple, and then he had this. There's a few others. And they became famous pictures. And I'm not sure if this was the one that he sent New York. Maybe he sent him a few. But it was early on. It's a very powerful picture. In fact, that was on the cover of Back to Godhead after Prabhupada left. And then the next issue, the title was He Lives Forever. And this was on the cover. Okay, so Srila Prabhupada is for everyone. Let's see. If he's for everyone, he's certainly for everyone in ISKCON. So let's... Okay, so what we're going to do, you remember that Founder Acharya resolution, that one bullet point we heard the last time? That he's the foundational Shiksha Guru for all devotees in ISKCON, 1994. We're going to look at all the points now of the full resolution. You get a fuller taste of Prabhupada's position in this resolution. So who has the mic? Okay. You want to?
Srila Prabhupada is the foundational Siksha Guru for all ISKCON devotees.
Yeah, and we're just going to give you the first few words so we can fit it all on a couple of slides. Foundational Shiksha Guru.
Srila Prabhupada's instructions are the essential teachings for every ISKCON devotee.
Essential teachings, as people have been telling me, yeah, there's so many books now and tapes and videos, and Guru Maharaj has this and that. I said, that's fine. Every generation is supposed to produce literature and media, but if they're useful, that means they're inspiring us to come to the main course, the main part of the meal, which is Prabhupada's Vani. That's the test of our books and our articles and our videos. And okay, so essential teachings. C.
Srila Prabhupada's books are the embodiment of his teachings and should be accepted as the standard by all future generations of ISKCON.
Therefore, if we continue to follow Srila Prabhupada, we will always study his Bhagavatam for the morning class, his Bhagavad Gita in the evening. It's not that we're going to go to somebody else's books. We can read those books and we'll know the measure of them we test them by how much they help us understand Prabhupada's books. But we're not going to start, just reading somebody else's books as the main course. Okay, D.
Srila Prabhupada should be worshipped daily by every ISKCON member.
Yes, it's ISKCON law actually that Prabhupada should be worshipped every day in Guru Puja as the founder Acharya. And maybe Maharaj can help me with this. I think once a year they're allowed to worship their Guru Maharaj on his birthday in the temple. Is that right? Or is it a private?
It's done differently, but generally it's private. Or in other words, another venue other than the temple.
Okay.
And usually the gurus don't want to be worshipped in front of Prabhupada or the deities, so they immediately look for another place.
Yeah, that makes sense, because it's a public venue and only certain people are his disciples, so why not go where you can fully relish the mellow of worshiping your spiritual master. Yeah. But the founder Acharya is a different matter, in front of the deities, all devotees, because that's how we're all connected. E.
Every spiritual master is responsible to guide his disciple to follow Srila Prabhupada's instructions.
Yes, that's the role of regular gurus post-founder Acharya. Okay, let's see here. Despite more founder Acharya resolutions since then, on the whole, we've been slow to understand that our relationship with our founder Acharya is foundational and pivotal, the relationship around which all others turn. On this point, we don't need more legislation, we need more education. Actually, when I wrote that, it was pre-2014, before that book came out, and actually we're doing better. People more and more get it, that Prabhupada's for everyone, and we should be making him the center in a practical way, not just in a slogan-waving way. Okay, so now we're going to look how to connect with Srila Prabhupada in some very basic ways. All right, now I made this collage to remind us. This photo collage shows some of the many sides of Prabhupada's greatness. From top left, what do I say? Plain living pioneer. He's trying to revive the plain living and high thinking. You know where that phrase came from, plain living and high thinking? Prabhupada must have come across it in his Scottish Churches College days, because he went to Scottish Churches College in the University of Calcutta system, and his teachers were Scottish fathers. So he studied, the British poets and writers. So in 1803, William Wordsworth wrote a poem, and it started like this: plain living and high thinking are no more. This is 1803. The poet Wordsworth is lamenting the encroaching industrial revolution how it's dragging people off the country into these hellish cities, polluting the air. I mean, the poet would he would probably just leave his body if he was here today, right? Especially in a place like Chicago. Plain living. So there's Prabhupada. Another shot of him between Orly Airport and Paris and the French farm. They stopped for answering the call of nature and also had a little picnic. So Prabhupada, the plain living pioneer. And raise your hand if you can tell us where Srila Prabhupada is there. Here we go.
Tompkins Square Park.
Good guess, but it's wrong.
San Francisco then.
Hippie Hill.
Hippie Hill and Golden Gate Park. Yeah, it is San Francisco.
Golden Gate Park, yeah, but it was a special place called where all the hippies would gather.
Right. And maybe you've seen the movies. Prabhupada's, he's like this. Very sedately doing the Swami step. And then he's got these rings of hippies circling him. And they're all they look like they're tripping. And they look like palominos. You know, they're kind of like bounding around. And yeah, it's pretty. And Prabhupada's just the calm center of the storm. Prabhupada talked about a world Sankirtan party, and there he is, leading the charge. This fellow became a sannyasi.
Subal.
Subal. Recognize his profile with a Dutch boy haircut. This person is familiar, but I'm not sure. Okay, so Prabhupada, the World Sankirtan Party leader. There's an early shot of Srila Prabhupada on the West Coast with
Malati
in a previous edition.
Venice Beach, right?
I'm not sure. It might have been San Fran, you know. But anyway, in those days, they've given, Govindadasa gave a nice memoir about how Prabhupada, you see how Prabhupada's there on the beach, and sometimes in the early days they'd have these bonfire kirtans. They used to fry potatoes over a fire, and then they'd have kirtan, and then it's either Malati or Govinda said, and then after the kirtan, one time when he said the Jayom prayers, he added, "All glories to the Pacific Ocean." 3 times he said, "All glories to the Pacific Ocean." And they thought that was so cool, that the Swami was honoring their, favorite ocean, Pacific Ocean. So I call this Prabhupada the Vaishnavi empowerer, because he saw how the Western girls grew up, educated just like the boys, and he didn't squelch that. He didn't squash that. He didn't impose traditional Indian roles on the ladies. He let them be all they could be, and they were people like Govinda and Jamuna and Malati. They were acted in leading roles in a lot of cases. So there's Malati looking adoringly at her Lord and Master, Srila Prabhupada. Okay, what else? Srila Prabhupada, the consummate cook. Nobody could cook like Prabhupada. And people who learned directly from Prabhupada, also their cooking was famous, like Jamuna and Kirtanananda. Prabhupada called him Kitchenananda. And there is Prabhupada at the Mississippi farm, 1975, right? Well, there's people a lot of people claim this picture. But there's other pictures around at the Mississippi farm, different shots around that, and it's definitely the Mississippi farm. I've had other people claim it's Vrindavan or New Vrindavan. Did Prabhupada ever do that? Go in the kitchen in New Vrindavan and cook? Yeah. No, it's definitely Mississippi farm because of all the other shots I've seen identified with that time period. So, boy, Prabhupada, because his cooking is, our secret ingredient is Krishna Prem. That's what makes Krishna hungry for the food. not our expertise in cooking. But if it's drenched in devotion, then Krishna's eager for that. So there's Prabhupada cooking, and what else here? Let's see, Prasada Master. There's Prabhupada. This is one shot. I just saw this movie the other day. It's online. There was a movie in the 70s called Brilliant as the Sun. It's about a 20-minute movie, and it's showing how the books were produced. It's a BBT kind of promo movie. And it starts with Prabhupada dictating. And so Srila Prabhupada is kindly allowing Yadavar and Vishaka to film him in the wee hours, dictating the books. After a time, Prabhupada finally said, no, these lights are too disturbing, because they had to do pretty intense lights for the filming. But he's dictating, Krishne Svadamo Pagate Dharma Jnana Dibiksaha. This Bhagavat Purana is as brilliant as the sun. This is 1.3.43. And it has arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna. Famous verse. And then the movie traces how after Prabhupada dictates, then it's transcribed, then it's produced, and it's laid out, and then there's paintings, and then there's paintings are shot, and then finally they're published, and then they're distributed. Then it showed people distributing the book, and the book distributor is showing the verse. This Bhagavat Purana is as brilliant as the sun. And then it shows the person coming to the temple and becoming a devotee. So there's Prabhupada, the fountain of all transcendental literature in ISKCON. And, raise your hand, where's Prabhupada there? No, good guess? Good guess, the manor. It's Gokulananda, Janmashtami, 1973. George has just donated the manor, and Prabhupada's installing the deities, and he's having an ecstatic kirtan afterwards. If you've seen the films, Prabhupada's jumping, and they all start jumping madly. So, yeah, fearlessly introducing deity worship all over the world. Okay, so this is just a glimpse of the many sides of Prabhupada, a true transcendental Renaissance man. So who's the archetypal Renaissance man in secular culture? When you study about the Renaissance and you see Da Vinci, who said? Yeah, Da Vinci. Yeah, because Leonardo da Vinci, his intelligence and his talents were so broad that he gave us everything from the Mona Lisa to the blueprints for the helicopter. That's not common when someone has that so many sides. Prabhupada was much more than that. So, okay. To connect with Srila Prabhupada is to connect with one or more of his magnanimous aspects. In the next slide, we'll see and hear how we can all connect with Srila Prabhupada in a foundational way. So the next slide is an audio slide, and it's all set up, right? Okay. So here's the context. Prabhupada is having some visa problems. He's in Montreal. It's 1968. He spends quite a few weeks there. The first Montreal temple was a former bowling alley. I was up in Montreal in 2016 for a Prabhupada festival, and they took us to the bowling alley. It's not a bowling alley anymore. And right next door is this big park where Jay, who became Jayapataka Brahmachari, used to chant his rounds, because he used to chant his rounds really loudly, and the devotees were disturbed by his loud chanting. So Prabhupada said, you should go to the park. So we did. They showed us the park. So, yeah, former bowling alley. And in August 15th, Prabhupada held initiations. And one of the people who took initiation was my dear god sister Rukmini, who's the wife of the ISKCON communications minister. They're based in DC. So Rukmini, what? He's your GBC. Oh, that's nice. So, well, that was later. Yeah. First one. Well, Rukmini was initiated in August 68.
Yeah, and then when later on she married Bhartaraj.
Yeah, that's another story.
Yeah, but well, that's a big story.
Yeah, no, it's a good story. It's a good story. But and Rukmini is from Chicago. She just sent me the first. She's writing about the story of her life now, and so Rukmini's 16 years old, and she's up in Montreal. I don't know why she was there. Maybe that's coming in the book. So she's just been initiated, and then 3 days later, Prabhupada's lecturing on Bhagavatam, and then there's a question from Rukmini, and it's a kind of a comment as well as a question, or it's a comment that turns into a question. So Rukmini, you can hear her on the tape, she says, Prabhupada, when you're not here, I feel so far away from you. You know, the Vani Vapu thing. So I don't think she even she didn't even get to make it a question, because Prabhupada's replied to that sentiment that she had, that when Prabhupada's not there, then she feels so distant from Prabhupada. So here's how Prabhupada responded to that.
That we should not think. There are two conceptions, the physical conception and the vibration conception. The physical conception is temporary. The vibration conception is time. Just like we are enjoying or we are relishing the vibration of Krishna's teaching. So my vibration is present. As soon as we chant Hare Krishna or chant Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavad, so he is present immediately by vibration. So we should give more stress on the sound vibration, either of Krishna or of the spiritual master, then we feel happy and no separation.
So without saying Vani and Vapu, Prabhupada introduced the concept of Vani, or vibration, being more important than the physical body, which comes and goes. The first and foremost way we can all connect with Srila Prabhupada is by becoming keen students of his spoken and written word. Regular attentive hearing from our founder Acharya, especially in the company of his serious and sincere followers, grounds us in the foundational relationship that will sustain and enrich all other relationships. Here are two legendary devotees who did just that. So now I'm going to show you in the next slide two famous devotees you all have heard of, at least. And they both made hearing from Prabhupada their life and soul, but they're so different, which is the way, that's reality. We're all very different people. And by meeting these people, I got to meet them at very different times in my life. You were accessing an aspect of Prabhupada. Okay, there they are, Sriman Jayananda Prabhu, Srimati Jamuna Devi. So interestingly, Jayananda Prabhu and Jamuna Devi were among the first to join Prabhupada's movement in San Francisco in 1967. Yet they were as different as night and day. So they both joined in 518 Frederick Street, but they came out of totally different places. Like Jayananda was James Corr, he was a graduate of Ohio State in mechanical engineering. He was a very qualified person, but he was a very unhappy person because, as Jayananda would say, I didn't fit in with the in crowd. He was such a down-to-earth, honest, saintly kind of guy. He just couldn't run with all the go-getters trying to join the world of cheaters and cheated. So what was he doing in 67 while all the hippies were having their be-ins and search for the counterculture? They were the counterculture. Search for the ultimate high. James Core, he was out in San Francisco driving a taxi. And Jayananda used to say later, my only solace in those days was just sometimes I would just go get an ice cream and drown his sorrows, not in beer, but in ice cream. And he was becoming suicidal because he was so disappointed with life, even though he was such a qualified guy. Big, strong, handsome guy, certified in mechanical engineering, but he just couldn't relate to the world of cheaters and cheated. And then one day he saw an ad in the San Francisco Chronicle, which said, it was an ad for Prabhupada's classes at 518 Frederick Street. And so he thought, okay, let me give it one more shot. So he goes, and then the way Mukunda and Shamsundar tell it, at first, James was too shy to come in. He would just look in and see all these hippies. He couldn't kind of relate to it, because they were all obviously counterculture types, and he was a real, he used to wear a white shirt and a tie when he drove his cab. And so he would look at the Swami, fascinated, but then see all these people there that just he couldn't relate to. Wearing their Merlin the Magician capes, and some of them looking like they hadn't bathed in a month or something. So finally, Mukunda said, or was it Shamsundar, he just opened the door one day, because this was going on, and they noticed this guy was coming around, but wouldn't come in. So I think it was Shamsundar that finally said, yes, may I help you? And so then that was James's permission to come in. And so he sat down, and he never left. He thought he was exactly what he'd been looking for, the real, as we say, the real deal, the genuine article, Prabhupada, bona fide spiritual master. So he would sit there and just soak up Prabhupada's classes, and he became the main supporter of the temple, because he had a job, of all things. So his income was paying the rent, and Prabhupada so much appreciated that. And later on, I think when a relative passed away, Prabhupada gave his inheritance, all of $5,000, which was a lot more, worth a lot more in those days, to Prabhupada, so he could, I think he published the Nectar of Devotion with it. So he was a very straight, all-American guy, and there he is on a morning walk with Srila Prabhupada, maybe Golden Gate Park, somewhere, and he's not dressed as a devotee, he's dressed for work. And I got to know Jayananda very late in his last year, 1977, when he had leukemia, cancer of the blood. So he had tried a cure in Tijuana, and actually at this cancer clinic, it's still famous, actually. He was having some success. It was actually starting to go in remission. But he was such a devotee, he was always preaching. So he was preaching to the doctors and the nurses, and the head of the hospital didn't like it, because I think it was Catholic, Tijuana, Mexico, Roman Catholic. So they told him that if you want to stay here, you can't preach. This is not our religion, right? So Jayananda got discouraged, and he decided, well, if I can't preach, what's the use? I'm out of here. So he wrote a letter to Prabhupada, and he was saying, this body is useless. I'm just going to go to Los Angeles and help them with building their first Ratha Yatra carts. This LA Ratha Yatra is practically the best in America, or New York and LA rivals. So it was Jayananda that year who went from Mexico, and he went up to Los Angeles to be the mastermind of the carts for the first Ratha Yatra. So that's when I got to know him. And he was just so, it's like what Lord Chaitanya said about Sanatana Goswami, who at one point, while he was instructing Sanatana, the CC, Madhya, chapters 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, he just stops at one point, and he's just marveling at his disciple. Sanatana, you know these things, but you're inquiring simply for the sake of strictness. You want it confirmed, but you already know all this. And he's just amazed how humble Sanatana is. So Jayananda was like that. He knew better than anybody the philosophy of Krishna consciousness because he was the servant of the servant of the servant. When he was president, finally, of the San Francisco temple, he just did all the things nobody else wanted to do. Take out the garbage, fix the plumbing. He could do all that stuff. He knew how things worked. He was a mechanical engineer. And so many stories of how people would come to the temple and their first contact was with Jayananda because he was like under a car, fixing a car, when everybody else might have been out on Harinam, you know. And so all he could see was Jayananda's feet sticking out from under the car. And the new person is asking questions, you know, what's going on here? And so Jayananda was preaching to him while he's under the car. And then, so the person thinks, wow, if even the mechanic is like this, these people must be amazing. But they didn't know that he was the best person there. Right? So many things to say about Jayananda, but I'll tell you, when you met him, you were, how do I put it here? To meet Jayananda was to meet a big, strong, humble worker, sold out to serving Srila Prabhupada, especially at Rath Yatra time. Srila Prabhupada's incredible strength and humility came through in Jayananda's character, behavior, and actions. So nobody has all of Prabhupada because Prabhupada is too all-sided, too pure, too powerful, too transcendentally Renaissance. But if you met Jayananda, you were directly getting that side of Prabhupada. And nobody worked harder than Prabhupada. Unbreakable determination, and just was doing so many things. So, now, next to that photo is Prabhupada on a morning walk with Jamuna Devi, probably San Francisco also, because I see part of Gaur Sundar's head in the background. Might be.
John Lennon's estate, Tittenhurst?
Well, I don't think so, because I'm pretty sure that's Gaur Sundar's head.
Gaur Sundar?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they're the West
he
Coast
wasn't
people.
there, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he wasn't at Lennon's estate. So Jamuna was always right there in the morning walks, you know, in what is it, Stowe Lake, you know, that's Stowe Lake at Golden Gate. And then and Prabhupada also, he loved this rhododendron dell. It was a dell of rhododendrons in the park in Golden Gate. Now Jamuna was always there, right with Prabhupada. Now I never knew Jamuna. I never met her in Prabhupada's time with us. It was only years later that I got to meet her in the early 90s on a mountain in South India. There's an ashram between Mangalore and Bangalore. Any Karnataka folks here? Okay, so on Mangalore side, there's Udupi in southwest India in Karnataka state. And then you go between Mangalore and Bangalore, which is on the other side of Karnataka, you know, more near Tamil Nadu. There's Kollur, not Kolar, but Kollur, where there's a famous deity, a Devi, a demigoddess, Mukambika. She's a triple incarnation of Parvati, Saraswati, and Lakshmi, right? And she's famous, even though it's a little tiny village in South India, celebrities go there because she's famous for empowering artists. Actors, singers, writers, fine artists, painters, you know. So you get these celebrities going there. Now, behind the little village, there's this big mountain, Kudachadri mountain. And that's where we had a mountain. About halfway up the mountain, we had an ashram. And then we also had a place down below in the village named Garuda Guha, where it was reputed that Garuda landed with Vishnu at one point in their Leela. So we were, my wife and I and our daughter, we were at Garuda Guha one morning, and we heard that Jamuna and her longtime friend Dina Tarine were coming to visit, because what was going on was the the person who was just coming in to take over the management of the farm, Abhiram Prabhu, he was inviting Westerners to come to see if we could make it an international community and not just Indian folks. So we heard Jamuna and Dina were coming. So one fine morning, we're cleaning our little bungalow at Garuda Guha, me and my wife and our daughter, and all of a sudden I hear footsteps on the path coming up on the premises, and then I hear a voice, and the voice is singing, Govindam Adi Purusham Tamahang Bhajami. So I said to my wife, Katyayani, I know that voice. That's, and I ran out and I said, Mother Jamuna. And somehow she knew me and she said, Father Sureshwar. She was so witty, she was so quick. In other words, she couldn't relate to Mother Jamuna because of how the word mother was abused, why ladies don't often like to be called mother in the West. And then so she just came right back with Father Sureshwar. So she knew that I could no more relate to Father Sureshwar than she could to Mother Jamuna, which is a classic Jamuna response. Anyway, many exchanges and stuff. We became instant friends. It was great, just through the humor of that. And then on Christmas Eve, Christmas is big in South India because Christians have been there since the 2nd century. Saint Anthony was there. So, so Christmas Eve happened to be an Ekadasi. This is December 1993. So Jamuna announces to us, we're going to have a Christmas Eve Ekadasi feast. In other words, she's going to cook it. But she didn't just cook it. She went into the village, which was just a small village with not so many different kinds of provisions. And somehow she gathered so many different kinds of foodstuffs, and she brought them back. And then she said, and now I'm going to cook and offer to Srila Prabhupada a Christmas Eve Ekadasi feast. It was all Ekadasi preps. And the job of her friend Dina Tarane was to keep away the monkeys. Because in the kitchen, there was a big black snake, and Jamuna wanted no part of that. She said, why are you keeping a snake in the kitchen? That's to keep out the rats, Jamuna. You know, but she wanted no part of that. Plus it was a little dirty. So she and Dina cleaned the veranda, where there's a nice platform. And all the while she's cooking, Dina's like keeping the monkeys at bay. It wasn't the heavy mafia and Vrindavan monkeys, but it was the Hanuman monkeys, are a little mellower, right? So all of us men, we were out fixing the well. There was some problem with the well. And then afternoon turned into dusk, and then it became twilight, and then dusk. And then Jamuna announces to all of us, now I'm going to offer our Christmas Eve Ekadasi feast to Srila Prabhupada. And she did that by candlelight. And then she insisted on serving the preps out to us and telling us intimate Prabhupada pastimes between her and Prabhupada. I'll tell you, that was the best part of my whole trip to South India. Just hearing that, just hearing her. So, to meet Jamuna was to meet a queen of devotion, especially through her cooking, music, and exquisite deity worship. For years she had an ashram in Oregon with Dina Tarane, and then later at Sharanagati, worshipping Sri Sri Radha Ban Bihari, Vana, the forest, in Bengali, Ban Bihari. And so when I'd visit Sharanagati later, this is really at the end of her life, I would go to her morning program. There were 2 morning programs. There was hers, and then there was a little temple too. But hers was much more packed. But when I came this one time, she and Dina had just gotten over the flu, so most people thought they weren't doing a program that day, but me and another devotee took a chance and went over. And so, so she welcomes us in, and they're all still kind of bundled up, but they're doing a morning program. And so she said, Sureshwara, I want you to sing Mangal Arti, Samsara Dava. So I said, no, Jamuna, I came here to hear you sing. No, no, no. I sing every day, so you sing. So I'll tell you, when you saw the deity worship, it was just exquisite. It was definitely temple standard, more than most temples. And then I said, I only sing if you have a certain instrument that I play. What is it? A traveling tambura. I got it. She had a whole room full of instruments. You know, the big gourd tambura. But I wanted, you know, the kind you can travel with. There's no gourd, it's just a flat rectangular kind of box, but it's got tightly wound strings, so it makes a pretty good sound. She had it. So, and so she's playing some kind of vintage recorder, you know, kind of keyboard, or keyboard. It's really primitive. I don't know where she got it. And I'm trying to croak out some Saradava, you know, but I'm so overwhelmed by the atmosphere. You know, it's so saturated with bhakti. Prabhupada said, Jamuna's in Baba. Prabhupada actually said that. He very much appreciated Jamuna's mood. My voice kept cracking, and then when I couldn't sing, then I looked behind me, and Jamuna's like, you can do it, dear. Come on. And then Jamuna. Very personal. And then, the morning after that, then we would chant japa around her ashram, which was a rammed earth house, a very natural house. And they had an Amish stove in there, because it was a little cool. Yeah, it was September. It's getting cool for British Columbia. And then we sat down for Bhagavatam class. You know what the Bhagavatam class was? Dina Tarine, she would read the verse and the purport, and then she'd give her reflection on the verse, and then she'd pass the book around, and we'd all give our reflections. And that was the Bhagavatam class. So to meet Jamuna, you were definitely accessing Prabhupada, the cultural conqueror, Prabhupada. Prabhupada would talk about cultural conquest. The consummate cook. You know, that cookbook, that award-winning cookbook, she wrote a few, but that Lord Krishna's Cuisine, it's just, it's time-tested, it's exquisite, and I tasted, you know, an Ekadasi feast, and it's completely out of this world. So you were accessing Prabhupada, the consummate cook, the singer. You know, George Harrison said to Jamuna famously after they recorded the Govinda prayers, you know, Jamuna, with a voice like yours, you could be a world-famous singer. I would promote you, which most singers would, you know, give their right arm for, to have George Harrison promote you. And she said, George, let me think about it. And then the next day she said, no thanks, George. I'm too busy serving Srila Prabhupada. I don't want to be a famous singer in the world. But she could have been. Okay. Now, different as they were, Jayananda and Jamuna shared a deep love of hearing from Srila Prabhupada. By developing a similar love, a unique aspect of Srila Prabhupada's glories can also manifest through us. Because we have certain natures, and Prabhupada's mission is so all-sided, we just have to connect with that aspect of the mission to which we can make our best contribution. And when we really get in that zone, you know, people talk about being in the zone, whether they're musicians or athletes or whatever, then we'll be giving them an aspect of Srila Prabhupada that they'll be amazed by and they'll want to know more. Did I tell the story of Jamuna at Kumbh Mela yet? When she realized that Vani was more important than Vapu? Okay. So I'm going to not end, but, no, there's more. But how are we doing, by the way? Okay. So, so Jamuna, you know, was one of the early devotees, along with Jayananda, and then she was one of the dancing white elephants for Srila Prabhupada in 1970-71. And then they went with Prabhupada to Kumbh Mela in 1971, January, and thousands of people, right? Millions of people. So they had tents, and they had a good spot. So they have different tents, a cooking tent, and they had a discourse tent. Prabhupada had his own tent. The men had one tent, the women had another tent. So before one particular event, it was Prabhupada addressing many thousands of people. Jamuna went in the tent, and she took her place front and center, right in front of the microphone, where Prabhupada was to speak. Now, just before Prabhupada came out, Jamuna is sitting there, chanting, and then she hears a voice. Psst! Jamuna, do you see where the Indian ladies are sitting? Behind and a little to the side? You should sit with them. So Jamuna told us this in Mayapur the last time she was in Mayapur. She said, so when I heard that, I thought, what's this all about? Whenever Prabhupada speaks, I sit right in front of him. I don't want to miss one word. So she looks behind her and she sees where the Indian ladies are sitting. So she stands up and she's thinking, oh, well, let me see what this is all about. Right? So she goes back to the side, a little behind. Prabhupada comes out, gives a beautiful talk. People are asking questions, Prabhupada roaring the answers, back. Everybody's amazed by Prabhupada's purity and his power. Then the event ends, and everybody files out. And then the devotees start setting up for the next program. And they're running around. And Prabhupada, in Prabhupada's tent, he's in his tent and he's chanting japa. And his tent comes down to about a foot off the ground. So from where Prabhupada's sitting, he can see which devotees are near him by the bottoms of their saris and dhotis, because he took note of who was wearing what. And so Jamuna said, so at one point I was running by Prabhupada's tent on some errand, and all of a sudden I hear, Jamuna, that's how Prabhupada called Jamuna, Jamuna, and she runs in, bows down, yes, Srila Prabhupada? And then Prabhupada says, so, you do not like to hear me anymore? This is too much. Jamuna just burst out crying. Hearing from Prabhupada's her life and soul. So after she finally collected herself and the sobs subsided, she told Prabhupada what happened. And then she said, Srila Prabhupada, what am I supposed to do? Because she has this relationship, a very close relationship with Srila Prabhupada. And then Jamuna said, Prabhupada didn't say anything. He just put his head down and was silent for a long time. And then Prabhupada said, yes, this is India. Right? When there's a different etiquette. And so Jamuna starts thinking, And then she asked the question, Srila Prabhupada, how often were you with your Guru Maharaj, meaning physically? Oh, maybe 5 or 6 times, but they were very intimate times. Guru Maharaj was always wanting to confide in me, and the others criticized, oh, fools rush in where angels fear to tread. Fool I may have been, but what could I do? Guru Maharaj wanted to confide in me, because Bhaktisiddhanta knew what his disciple was capable of doing. And then Prabhupada said to Jamuna, for her benefit, Guru Maharaj told me that those who always wanted to be seen with him, seen with the Guru, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, famous person of his time, were like mosquitoes, simply sucking blood. Yeah. So Jamuna realized from that moment that if she wanted to continue to get closer to Prabhupada, she was going to have to start cultivating the mood of service and separation, which we heard about this morning from Maharaj and Prabhupada's purport. And so she did that. And so when you were with Jamuna, you were accessing Prabhupada, because her meditation on Prabhupada, it wasn't dependent on his physical presence. Although later, she was cooking lunch for Prabhupada in that Radha Damodar temple during the Nectar Devotion series lectures. It's because Jamuna invited Vishaka into the Prabhupada's quarters that we have that shot of Prabhupada taking prasad, looking out of that window. She and Gurudas were the main, they spearheaded the launching of the Krishna Balaram construction. She had a lot of still intimate association, but when Prabhupada finally did disappear from this world, she didn't fall apart. Whereas Gurudas, who had a lot of vapu, but was not so deep in Vani, did. And Gurudas told me that later. I never knew Gurudas either, but when I got to know him later, he told me, yeah, that was too much. ISKCON wasn't the same without him because it was minus Prabhupada vapu. Okay, let's have a comment from Maharaj.
In the biography done by Dinatarani of Jamuna, you see how intimate that relation was. Prabhupada could understand the depth of her bhakti, and when they were in John Lennon Estate in Tittenhurst, just the two of them would be on morning walks together, just them two. And you can see some shots, of course, Gurdas or Shyamasundar was taking pictures, I'm not sure who. Yeah. But one time, she tells about how she was following behind Prabhupada, and she said she was thinking, I want to walk in his footsteps. So, and the ground was able to show the imprints, but when she was walking behind Prabhupada, she couldn't find any footsteps. So she becomes a little overwhelmed, and then at one point she asks Prabhupada, I'm trying to walk in your footsteps, but I don't see any footprints. Prabhupada said, that will be revealed later.
Jai. Yeah, tall, wet grasses, early morning at Tittenhurst, Lennon's estate. And, you know, when we walk through wet grass, you trample it down. But when Prabhupada walked, wasn't doing it.
Some people say they used to not touch the ground when he walked.
Well, I told you, I'm a charter member of the Floaters Club. Anyway, and then also in that book, Jamuna said how she was in a car, Tamal Krishna Maharaj was driving, and, no, Tamal Krishna Maharaj wasn't driving, it must have been Purushottam, his servant, and Prabhupada's in the passenger seat on the right, or I guess on the left, of this, England, and Jamuna, she's sitting right in back of Prabhupada's seat with her back to Prabhupada. You know, she's chanting japa, and then Prabhupada's on the other side chanting. And let's see if I can get this right now. All of a sudden, out of the blue, Prabhupada says, I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's all about when he leaves this world, what to do, how to do his tirobhav, his disappearance, how to deal with the body. And so Prabhupada is slightly turned, and Jamuna thinks he's talking to Purushottam, but actually as she turns, she can see that Prabhupada's talking to her. And then she says, Srila Prabhupada, I think you should tell this to Tamal Krishna Maharaj. No, I'm telling you. I'm telling you. If you like, you can tell Tamal Krishna. I guess he wasn't even sannyasi then, that was a little later. Yeah, that was later. I'm telling you. So there was a very intimate relationship between Prabhupada and Jamuna. As soon as Prabhupada installed Radhalanda Ishwar on December 14th of 1969, before he left on the 20th, it was just him and Jamuna, and Prabhupada was showing him as much as he could in intricate detail about how to worship these deities, worship, bathe and dress, and all the different offerings. And so she was personally trained by Prabhupada in deity worship. But the point of this whole thing, again, is that the more we deepen our Krishna consciousness in a certain aspect, in our mission and the mission, then we can actually access that aspect of Srila Prabhupada and transmit it to others. And that's how the parampara will go on, when everyone does that. We all have that opportunity.
I get chastised by Prabhupada. I get chastised.
You get chastised for
Yeah.
what?
You know, when I pay my obeisances, I get up and Prabhupada tells me, yeah, you know, preach. Or you eat too much. So I still get chastised.
Yeah, that's good. That's the duty of the guru.
He talks to me, but he tells me, you know, like, one time when I took over the preaching center in Columbus in 1990, and Malati had just come back after being away for a while.
And Jamuna brought her back.
Yeah, and then Malati was there, but Malati wasn't in such good state of mind at that time. She had been recovering. So I had to deal with Malati when she first came back, and I was having headaches trying to do it. And I was thinking, what am I going to do? You know, I know she's a great devotee, but at the same time, she's just too eccentric for me. So at one point, I'm walking past Prabhupada, and I stopped, and Prabhupada talked to me. He said, be very kind to her. And I got it. I said, okay, I got it. After that, I just, whatever she could do, it was okay with me. I just kind of went with it, you know. Yeah,
was that an auditory vision, or was that a hard?
No, it was an auditory vision. I heard Prabhupada's voice. Yeah, he said it was clear, and I got the message that, you know, she was very dear to Prabhupada, very, very dear to Prabhupada.
Yes.
Because those devotees that were with Prabhupada in the early days. Yeah.
Yeah, special souls, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the first and foremost way we can connect with Prabhupada, is by hearing, just like Jayananda and Jamuna. Hearing was their life and soul. And so, of course, we all hear Prabhupada in different ways, but they took their hearing and perfected their service to him, just by hearing from Srila Prabhupada. Connect by finding and making your best contribution to our founder Acharya's mission. So let's... Want to read, Prabhu? In the white? I forgot your name again. Okay, never mind. Go ahead. Oh, what's your name? I forgot.
Mahabhalanitai.
Okay, that's right. JPS, triple names. Put the mic up by your mouth.
So you want me to read that? Is what you're saying?
Just read that again.
Oh, connect by finding and making your best contribution to our founder Acharya's mission.
Okay, there's Prabhupada in front of the Jaladuta, and that's collage. Now, Srila Prabhupada emphasized that helping the spiritual master serve Krishna's mission is the best way to become dear to the Lord. Okay, so read an excerpt now from Prabhupada's... Where's the mic? Can you read again? Okay, so read this excerpt.
When one becomes serious to follow the mission of the spiritual master, his resolution is
Tantamount
to seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Ooh, this is a good peek at Prabhupada's mood.
From your perspective, what is the definition of tantamount?
Tantamount is equal to, it amounts to. It's the same as tantamount. Okay, so, but this is really a classic Prabhupada line. If you serve the mission of the Guru, that's as good as seeing God face to face. Because it's action. Prabhupada's he defined bhakti in a very active way. Devotional service. Not just love or devotion, but devotional service. Now here's what else Prabhupada said in the purport. In conclusion, if a disciple is very serious to execute the mission of the spiritual master, he immediately associates with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the only secret of success in seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Instead of being eager to see the Lord in some bush of Vrindavan, Prabhupada can't resist taking a swipe at the Sahajas, while at the same time engaging in sense gratification. If one instead sticks to the principle of following the words of the spiritual master, he will see the Supreme Lord without difficulty. As Prabhupada would tell us, my Guru Maharaj used to say, don't try to see God, you work in such a way that God will see you. Now, near the end of our Founder Acharya lessons, we may still wonder, does developing our foundational relationship with Srila Prabhupada mean we are slighting or circumventing or jumping over our Diksha and Shiksha gurus? There might be that doubt. Because, you know, again, from the Zonal Acharya era, it was always, I mean, in one case, I know one zone where the Zonal Acharya was telling even his godbrothers, people who weren't even his disciples, that you can't know Prabhupada except through me. I mean, it was such abuse of power. So that we got burned by that, right? So we may wonder if we're focusing on Prabhupada, are we somehow jumping over, circumventing our own gurus? Okay. So, no, that's not a monkey. Who is it? You know what kind of a creature that is? It rhymes with a bone in your leg. Right, femur is the bone, so what's the creature? Lemur. Native to Madagascar, the Comoro Islands off the southeastern coast of Africa. He was the best creature on Google Images. He beat out all the monkeys. So I decided to use him. Now, in the early 1970s, as more devotees started to visit India, some were fascinated by Gaudiya Math books available in English, especially those of Srila Bhaktivinoda and Srila Bhakti Siddhanta. So they asked Srila Prabhupada if they could read them. Now we're going to listen to one way Prabhupada responded to that question. So this is LA, December 1973, and Prabhupada is very clear.
You cannot imagine what my spiritual master said. Or even if you read some book, you cannot understand unless you understand it from me. This is called Prabhupada. You cannot jump over to the superior guru, neglecting the next other, immediate next other.
Okay, so that seems to confirm that first and foremost is our Diksha Guru, right? Immediate next Acharya. Now, listen to this. Since during his brief time with us, Srila Prabhupada was the only bona fide guru we knew, we did not deeply understand his unique position as our founder Acharya, our foundational spiritual master. He's not simply a regular guru. He's not simply our upline in the parampara. He's our access to all teachers and teachings. Now, after Prabhupada's disappearance, ISKCON's new gurus sometimes confused following him with imitating him, and the consequences were devastating. Over time, we've come to realize that a prime duty of our Shiksha and Diksha gurus is to deepen, enhance, and enrich our foundational relationship with Srila Prabhupada. So if no jumping over means no neglecting one's immediate next Acharya, you know, our own manifest gurus, our Shiksha and Diksha gurus, how much more does that apply to Srila Prabhupada, our foundational Acharya, from whom we derive our core identity and through whom we see all teachers and teachings? So as we get to know ourselves in relation to Srila Prabhupada, with a cool head, we will be able to aspire for Diksha and Shiksha gurus who can help us make our best contribution to his mission. The more deeply we connect with Srila Prabhupada, the more responsibility we have to pass on his unique legacy to others. So this gets at a question Maharaj asked me earlier in the day about how did you phrase the question about, I'm trying to think how you phrased it, about, yeah, there being so many books by our gurus, and did you ask me this question? No? Maybe somebody else did. Okay, you know, I've mentioned this before. There were so many books out and so many videos, and everybody's writing and publishing and you know, being active on social media. That's great. That's what Prabhupada wanted. He wanted us to, every generation should update, so to speak, the parampara. But it only has value as we make the founder Acharya's teachings the center of all that updating. So Prabhupada, in a very brilliant way, he, you have a question? Yeah? Okay. So in a very brilliant way, he informed us of how to be faithful to the parampara and yet fresh. Imbibe and impart Srila Prabhupada's legacy. So the more we do get closer to Prabhupada, the more we have a responsibility to give him to others. It's not that we just sit on it. Thanks for coming. Okay, so my favorite passage in this connection is Bhagavatam Purport, 1st Canto, 4th chapter, 1st verse, 141. If you want to read about how to be faithful to Prabhupada and yet fresh in your presentation, here it is. So where's the mic? Mic? Okay, so Mataji, you want to read?
Imbibe and impart Srila Prabhupada's legacy. Personal realization does not mean that one should, out of vanity, attempt to show one's own learning by trying to surpass the previous Acharya. He must have full confidence in the previous Acharya, and at the same time, he must realize the subject matter so nicely that he can present the matter for the particular circumstances in a suitable manner.
Now this is Prabhupada's emphasis. Prabhupada put this in italics.
The original purpose of the text must be maintained. No obscure meaning should be skewed or of it.
Screwed out of it.
Oh, sorry, screwed out of it. Yet it should be presented in an interesting manner for the understanding of the audience. This is called realization.
This is called, and where do we get those realizations? From our surrender. The more we are surrendered to the instructions of Prabhupada and our gurus, the more we're empowered to do this kind of stuff. As I said, Prabhupada, he always said, if I have any credit, it's that I haven't changed anything. But he was so innovative. I'll give you an example of how innovative Prabhupada was. 1976, Prabhupada is present for the grand opening of the new Fisher Mansion in Detroit. Were you there? You know the story. Yeah, so it's great. It's kind of a long story, but I'll make it as short as I can. So, interestingly, Prabhupada was so attractive as a spiritual master. You know, Detroit is the home of the auto aristocracy, right? It's all about cars, the car capital of America, maybe the world. So Prabhupada was able to attract both the great-grandson of Henry Ford, who represents management, the capitalists, right? And also the daughter of the most famous labor leader of the day, Walter Reuther, who was like the Gandhi of the American labor movement. He's the one that got a fair deal for the workers, because otherwise they were being exploited by the capitalists. So anyway, for the grand opening, Lekha Shrivanti, my godsister, who was the daughter of Walter Reuther, invited all these labor bigwigs, and then Ambarish invited all the people on the management side. And they all came, because it was kind of a lark. They wanted to see what the Krishnas were doing with Larry Fisher's old mansion, which was built for a few $1 million in the 1920s. It's like importing the best materials from all over the world for each room. And they were asking $350,000 or $400,000 for it. Prabhupada toured the place with the realtors and the devotees, and he offered them $300,000 cash. But first of all, Prabhupada said, "So we're monks, so you should kindly donate this building to us?" You don't say that to an American realtor. The lady who was with the man nearly left her body, you know. He can't say that, you know. That's all right. Huh?
She was the agent for the sale, and
Yes,
she knew she would get cut out of her commission if she...
Exactly. So Prabhupada offered $300,000 cash. They were just trying to get rid of the place. The neighborhood had gone down and it had been in disrepair. So Prabhupada just offered them $300,000 and they took it. Did he have $300,000? No. But then he turns to Ambarish and said, "So you can help?" So Ambarish goes to Lake Shravanti, whose parents had died in a very fishy, suspicious plane crash in 1970. Basically, it was either the FBI, it was either the Nixon administration that did him in, or it was the mafia. Somebody was always trying to kill her father. Anyway, she had an inheritance, a life insurance policy, and she gave it all. She gave $150,000, and Ambarish gave $150,000, and Prabhupada had the cash. And then Ambarish spent $1 million of his own money just fixing the place up for a year. Okay, that was in 75. 76, the grand opening. All these auto aristocrats, they come to the Fisher Mansion just to see what the Krishnas have done with Larry Fisher's old mansion. So there's pictures of this, there's a recording of it. So you see in the picture, Prabhupada just sitting in his quarters in a low desk like he always did, and the carpet's covered with white sheets like he always did. And then there's these people that would never get within, 100 miles of a Hare Krishna temple. And the men in their tuxedos, and the ladies with their big gowns and their big hair and their big pearls. And so they're all sitting there, some on fancy chairs, some guys are actually sitting cross-legged. They want to get the full Krishna experience, right, on the floor in front of Prabhupada. So how in the world is Prabhupada going to relate to these people? These are people who make their living exploiting the public. These are the people that discovered planned obsolescence. The first cars that Ford made, they didn't break. And then they realized if they want to keep people coming back and buying cars, they had to build them to break. Planned obsolescence. Such big cheaters. So anyway, so what does Prabhupada do? He welcomes them to his darshan room, and he starts talking about how when he was a businessman, he had a car, a 1925 Buick. So he's immediately putting them at ease. Oh, cool, the Swami knows about cars. And Prabhupada said, I never drove the car, but I had an assistant who drove the car for me to all the appointments, right? To drum up pharmaceutical business. And he was the best salesman. And then Prabhupada starts describing to them about everything that went wrong with the car. And every time Prabhupada describes what went wrong with the car, they laugh because they know how they built them to break, right? First the brake, the brakes went, and the steering, and then the carburetor, and the tires, and the engine. And every time Prabhupada describes it, they're in hysterics, They're really grooving on the Swami. And then when Prabhupada has them in the palm of his hand, what does he say? So, yeah, this body is like a car. He starts going into the Upanishadic metaphor. The horses, or now we say horsepower, are like the senses. The reins are like the mind. The steering wheel, the intelligence, the driver. And the passenger is the soul. So they got it because he used a car analogy. They got to lesson, the first lesson in spiritual life. Just as there is a difference between the passenger and the car, there's a difference between the soul and the body. This body's like a car. So Prabhupada had the compassion to go right where they are, car loka, car universe, lead them by the hand, step by step, to give them mercy, to understand that they're not the body. At least in his darshan room, they got it. So there's an example. No obscure meaning should be screwed out of it, but you have to know how to do it. Elsewhere in 1.5.16, he talks about you have to devise novel ways to present what Prabhupada called old wine in new bottles. So we have to, and we'll get, this is called realization. We get that realization the more we develop the desire to share what we have and not just hoard it, but to give it to others. And then Krishna is pleased within, and he gives us the intelligence how to do that. Okay, so, observation. Let's see here. So the more we immerse ourselves in our founder Acharya's life, teachings, mood, and mission, the more we will understand how to be both faithful and fresh as we represent him. Represent means to represent, present him all over again, amid the ever-changing times, places, and people. Srila Prabhupada wants us all to carry his legacy and become regular gurus, not to imitate or replace him, but to follow in his footsteps. So I make an observation now. Whenever younger devotees say that they can't imagine what ISKCON will be like after the last Prabhupada disciple leaves the planet, I become more convinced how important it is for all generations of devotees to understand our foundational identity as Prabhupada Anugas, Prabhupada followers, imbibe Prabhupada's unique legacy and impart it to others. You know, if you've been to Mayapur at the time of Prabhupada's appearance, his Vyasa Puja, or if you've been there more commonly at his disappearance during Kartik, you know, they always sit us down, us endangered species, Prabhupada initiates, you know, the Prabhupada, the first generation of Prabhupada followers. And they have us tell Prabhupada pastimes, right? And the whole, this is in the Prabhupada Samadhi, you know, that big Samadhi, the round building that Ambarish and the BBT built. So one year when they passed the mic to me, in the mood of this, what I just said, I offered my obeisances to Prabhupada, and then I started walking around the room like this, and I said, now, this is all people who never saw Prabhupada. Now, I don't want you coming up to me anymore and saying, Prabhu, I can't imagine what it's going to be like when the last Prabhupada disciple leaves the planet. Do you think you have any less access to Prabhupada than us? You have more access. And it's the duty of every generation to imbibe and impart the legacy. It's not just us dinosaurs. You know, we're a dying breed, and it's going to all die when Prabhupada leaves. No, it's not about that at all. So our duty as the first generation of Prabhupada's followers is to give this all to you folks, so you can do the same thing. That's parampara. And now we're going to see, to end the lesson, the benefits of deeply understanding Srila Prabhupada's position. This is why it's so important that that happens, that every generation gets it, takes it in and passes it on. Now, here it is. Now, to end the lesson, what I did was I just directly lifted what Ravindra Swarup Prabhu wrote at the end of his Founder Acharya book. He had bullet points, the benefits of deeply understanding Srila Prabhupada's position. You know, why do this? So you're going to see very powerfully the way Ravindra phrased it, of why it's so important and why it's good for us to deeply understand Prabhupada's position. Okay, so let's start reading the points. Where's the mic? Okay, so how about Prabhu, the first man? Yes.
The first servant. Benefits of deeply understanding Srila Prabhupada's position.
Prabhupada, why don't you just read all of them, because we haven't called on you yet. So you can, there's about 6 or 7 of them.
Generation after generation will be able to receive the special mercy offered by Srila Prabhupada. The path back to Godhead he opened will become ever increasingly traveled.
Special mercy. Now, we're not sectarian. We don't say Prabhupada's the only pure devotee who ever lived or something, and that Prabhupada's the way, the light, the truth. No one cometh unto Krishna except by Srila Prabhupada. You know, we're not sectarian Krishnas. At the same time, look what His Divine Grace did. Look how He was empowered. Look what facility He's offering the whole world to come back to Krishna. So many temples, restaurants. We still have to do the varnashram. That's going to be the really good part, allowing everybody to really serve. But Prabhupada has just created so much facility for us to go back to Godhead. And also in his books, weaving into his purports unprecedented realizations that he got from doing what nobody ever did. Maybe now's the time to tell that story. Maybe I'll do it at the end. The Ayodhyapati, P.V. Govinda Maharaj story. I think I'll do that at the end. Okay, Prabhuji, here's another bullet point.
Srila Prabhupada's active presence will secure the unity and integrity of ISKCON, strengthening both the GBC and Guru-disciple bonds.
Right, that's the central challenge, as I mentioned on the last lesson, to have strong management, supervision, per Bhaktivinoda Thakur's vision, and have strong Guru-disciple relationships, everybody cooperating for the sake of spreading the mission of Srila Prabhupada and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's really important. If we really deeply understand Prabhupada, then everybody will identify with Srila Prabhupada. And it won't just be my little zone or my God family. Or that's important, but it's important if it nourishes our topmost allegiance to our founder Acharya. And
by taking full shelter of Srila Prabhupada as Siksha Guru in his Vani manifestation, all teachers in ISKCON on various levels of advancement will be able to authentically convey Srila Prabhupada's real teachings, thus giving proper guidance, shelter, and protection to all.
Right. If we're deeply absorbed in Srila Prabhupada, we won't go off the beam over the cliff, as has happened. We'll be grounded in Prabhupada's life, teachings, mood, and mission. Okay.
ISKCON's teaching will remain consistent over space and time.
Yeah, similar. Because time you can see. How old is ISKCON? 50 plus years. And look at everything that's happened in 50 years. So we really need to stay on course, to stay the course, as they say. We really need to keep Prabhupada's life, teachings, mood, and mission front and center. Okay, another one?
Prabhupada's realized knowledge, endowing him with the specific potency to spread Krishna consciousness, will not only be preserved, but also developed.
Yes, Prabhupada did tell us that if you can't increase, at least maintain what I have given you. But we can only do that if, again, we're all deeply hearing from His Divine Grace. Here's a related point.
His books will remain central to us, for they contain insights and directions that await future development to be realized.
What Prabhupada had time to manifest in his 12 years walking among us is only a fraction, or at least no more than 50%, than what he taught in his Vani. For example, the whole Varnashram, 50% of the mission have not been fulfilled. That's all described in Prabhupada's Vani, but it wasn't manifest in Bapu. So there's so many things in Prabhupada's teachings that give us a seed of an idea of how to develop Krishna consciousness in certain ways. It's things like Varnashram that can be developed the more we keep getting inspired by Srila Prabhupada to do that. In all walks of life, in all countries, there's just so much to do. He's given us enough to do for the next 10,000 years. Okay, and finally,
Srila Prabhupada's eyes will always remain the lens through which all future generations see our predecessor Acharyas. From the position of Srila Prabhupada, published by the GBC committee, Srila Prabhupada's position.
Right. So we don't live in a vacuum. We hear so many things, we read so many things, we meet so many people. Fine. But we test all of it through Prabhupada's eyes. I have a godbrother who was so discouraged by what happened in the 80s that he went to another Gaudiya Sangha. Okay, I understand. But when I visited him and I saw his altar, I could see very clearly how now he was seeing Prabhupada through another guru's eyes. Okay, but if we do that, we've stepped outside of Prabhupada's Sangha. We might appreciate Prabhupada, but not as the founder Acharya. He is that Guru Shiromani that Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentioned in Lesson 2, the topmost crown jewel of the spiritual masters, through whom we see all teachers and teachings, and anything contradictory to his teachings we just don't accept. Okay, so lesson outcomes. By the end of the lesson, students will be able to describe how Srila Prabhupada is for everyone, describe how we can better connect with our own Srila Prabhupada and reflect an aspect of his limitless glories, explain how to represent Srila Prabhupada effectively while sharing his unique legacy, and finally we should be able to identify the benefits of deeply understanding Srila Prabhupada's unique position. So I have one question left for y'all, as we say in the South. Well, this is a big question, and but if somebody would like to give, say, in 25 words or less, this will help me develop the Founder Acharya project. How has our Founder Acharya journey influenced your relationship with Srila Prabhupada? Hopefully it's influenced your relationship for the better. So would anybody share something? Anything? Okay, we have a taker right here. Okay, wait. Go ahead. No, you come. Thank you.
Just briefly, it's strengthened it because I've learned. So even though I've read many of the books, I've learned from you and from the material much more about him, much more in depth, and that's been very helpful.
Thank you. Good. Yeah, it's what I am in as an assembler. I've taken things from different devotees and Prabhupada's words, of course, and I've just assembled them in ways that are striking, so it'll stick. Maharaj.
Yeah, it's strengthened all my previous understandings of Srila Prabhupada by bringing out those points again and again, which helps to develop a greater appreciation, but a greater sense of responsibility towards the mission.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the essence of what this is all about.
Yeah.
Because the connection with Srila Prabhupada is our service to him.
That's right. Yeah. Jai, yeah, service is the most congenial form of intimacy. Okay, Prabhuji. Whoops, first we have Kevin.
Sorry, I was just going to say really quick that it makes me want to listen to Prabhupada Vani more often.
Jai!
Yes.
Two quick things. One is hearing the seminar. I am actually planning on carving out time every day to read Harishari Prabhu's 5-volume diary. Second is, this is what I've done, and it now strengthens it even more, that in the course of my outreach to college students, that one of the ways that their sadhana is conducted is that every day they hear Prabhupada's lectures before they hear anyone else. And that is important for them, so they appreciate our founder Acharya before they're connected to any of his followers who will connect them, in a strong way to the parampara. So,
right.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. 3 points, Prabhu. One is, as Prabhu pointed out, even though I don't feel, sometimes I feel I'm not fortunate enough to be in the time when Prabhupada was there, but as you pointed out today, that Vani is more...
You have more opportunity today, believe me.
And the second thing is, when you mentioned about Jayanandan Prabhu and Yamuna Mataji, that I feel that the qualities of Prabhupada I can access those qualities of Prabhupada through his disciples, spiritual master and some other and other disciples as well. And I can take them as role models and try to be more inspired from them and cultivate those qualities.
Right.
And the final thing is take some time during the day for worship of Prabhupada. I think you mentioned during the presentation that Prabhupada worship goes on in the temples. The deity of Prabhupada should be worshipped. So for me, the practical application is, at least at my place, I take some time of the day to worship Prabhupada in whatever capacity I can.
Oh, good. Oh, thank you. Mataji.
I want to, everything, especially what Maharaj said, that was something even I was thinking, that a lot of what you presented, we kind of knew, but the way you so systematically presented, that was very helpful. And actually, it prompted me for a deeper commitment to my own service to Srila Prabhupada.
Good.
And I want to, actually, because Maharaj is leaving, I want to...
Maharaj, don't go.
I want to thank Maharaj for taking the initiative, because I was not thinking about this.
Right.
I was already swamped with many seminars and in the summer, and I knew that many people will not show up because our congregation kind of gets overwhelmed. But yet Maharaj encouraged me, even though it was 2 weekends. I appreciate Maharaj, you did that, because like you said, the few chaste listeners who came both the week, I'm sure all of us really benefited. So thank you so much, Maharaj, for organizing. You were the most enthusiastic participant. And I want to now thank His Grace Sureshwar Prabhu also for doing this. It's actually very rare, because we hear Prabhupada pastimes in lectures and in other seminars, but do something very specific, focused on, like, about what Prabhupada's position is, and what is why this is so important for us to understand in a deeper way. And actually, the right mood to even connect with our own Diksha Gurus, and the importance of other Gurus, not just the Diksha Guru. These are actually, if devotees really come and attend these seminars, I feel more than 75% of our problems that we are facing and will face in the future will not be there. But devotees don't understand that. They said, oh, the seriousness is not there. But I'm hoping that, I know you're so committed to Prabhupada. Prabhu, keep doing this. Even the handful of us who are really keen and interested, we are benefiting. So I really appreciate you being here for over 10 days. It's not really very comfortable. It's hot, and there's no AC.
Great. You got a lake.
Yeah, we have a lake. But even your living facility, there is no air conditioning or anything, but yet, seems like you were more enthusiastic in doing, presenting than we sitting here and listening,
Some like it hot. I like it hot.
So thank you so much. I deeply, deeply appreciate it. And after a couple of years, I would like you to come back, because I'm hoping we'll have new members, and it would be nice to do again, and also a refreshing for all of us. So
okay.
I was personally, the first day when it started, I was little bit, still feeling a little overwhelmed that, like 6 days, 2 weekends, and I was little bit on a doership mentality. I said, what if nobody comes? And, my God, is it too long? Did I commit to too much? But at the end, I have no regret. So, and I know that those of us who attended, we got a lot of Prabhupada's mercy too, and your mercy. So thank you for your association, Prabhu.
Srila Prabhupada, ki jai. I just have to say thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for inviting me. People have been approaching me online and in person. They say, Prabhu, how do we contribute to the project? And I said, well, okay, I take donations. If you really want to give dakshin, pray for my health. Because last year, I had prostate cancer, and then Krishna showed me how to get rid of it. So I'd like to do this seminar series for the rest of my life. I mean, pretty much, until I can't walk or talk or whatever. So please pray to Sri Sri Kishore Kishore that I can stay chipper. We say chipper in American, you know, stay fit. So I can keep traveling with this, because health is the first wealth. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.